why do you think most of the rich and powerful hate Trump?
It's a good question to start with. Historically, the wealthy in America, they would vote in a way that would benefit tax policy. So they would have to not to pay as much in taxes or would benefit from his regulatory reform. Today, the wealthiest counties in the country are the most anti-Trump, not because of tax policy, although Trump's tax policies largely benefit them because they end up putting not more money in just in their pockets, but in the pockets of all Americans. It is the fact that he shakes up the system, that he's willing to call out people, that he's willing to appoint people, as we saw, like Matt Gaetz, to shake up the Department of Justice, that he's willing to appoint people, as we just learned this afternoon, like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to Health and Human Services. Think about, and I want to distinguish between the wealthy and powerful, between those who are pro-America at the core and those who are anti-America at the core. Elon Musk is one of the wealthiest people in the world. He is pro-America through and through. Bill Gates is an America last globalist. His allegiance is not to the American flag. His allegiance is to the United Nations, to Davos, and to the European Union. He views himself as a global citizen. And you and I, and Elon Musk, and Vivek Ramaswamy, and Donald Trump, we pledge allegiance to one flag, and that is of the Stars and Stripes. And so when we say rich and powerful, we should delineate between those who love America and those who apologize for it. And so to your point, those rich and wealthy folks who apologize for America, they can't stand the fact that Donald Trump will defend this country, will defend our history, the good, bad, and the ugly, will defend statues from being torn down, from our entire way of life and our culture being torn to shreds. Think about, on one last point, the rich and powerful who are anti-American, they will exploit the desperation of migrants in South America, in Africa, in the Middle East, to use them for cheap labor here in America. The New York Times, who's no fan, by the way, of Donald Trump, wrote an article 2 years ago and has covered this pretty extensively. It's called The Kids at the Night Shift. And it's about young kids from Central America who are being worked overtime in food processing plants in the Midwest. And they're losing their arms, they're losing their fingers at 14 years old because they're sitting there and the machine catches them as they're cutting up the meat as it goes through the processing plant. And so think about what kind of company says, well, we believe that no human is illegal. They don't believe that in the sense that we should treat, as our country has always been of the belief in our Judeo-Christian founding, that everyone deserves human dignity, that we are created in the image of God, Genesis 1:1.
100%.
But they believe in exploiting people for their own benefit. I was just in New York yesterday, and to see all of the workers, Jacob, from Central America work for Uber Eats and for DoorDash, 15 orders an hour, running through the traffic, being pulled 15 different ways. Why? Because those companies have given up on American workers and said, no, we don't want to address the structural issues that are keeping 7 million working age men out of the labor force. We don't want to address addiction and despair. Instead, Jacob, they say, let's import all these people who are desperate. Let's pay them the wages, half of what we would pay American citizens, and let's use them to drive profits. That's unacceptable.
So hypothetically, what would happen if the shift were to be focused on driving American workers to work those minimum wage jobs that you could outsource to people that are okay taking a lower pay grade because they come from these third world countries? What would happen if Americans were working in those jobs?
It would be a short-term hit for those companies' profits because they would actually have to pay a living wage. And a living wage shouldn't be controversial, by the way. A living wage is the market wage for the citizens of a country, right? If I'm in a wage negotiation for you and I want to hire you to do something, and the market wage for your services are $25 an hour, that's called essentially the living wage, the wage at which you are willing to enter the labor force to support yourself, because in many respects you may be supported by government programs like Medicaid or Social Security or food stamps. But guess what? If in the middle of that negotiation you say, well, I tell you, I actually just have 5 migrants who just showed up here from South America, from Central America, and from East Africa, and they're willing to work for $8 an hour. You're out of a job now because I can now hire 3 of them for 1 of you, drive profits, drive productivity, and drive shareholder returns. And the problem with that is it's not just anti-capitalist, it's anti-American. You don't get to import cheap labor into a system and then use it against the people of the country that contributed to the success of your company. And so to your question, you get a short-term hit on profits. Maybe the stock goes down a little bit, but then you don't have the issues that are springing up all across America. 7 million working age men, our age, 7 million between the ages of 25 and 54, are not working or are not looking for work. What are they doing? Well, the late Alan Kruger, the economist from Princeton, he found that nearly half of them are taking painkillers every single day. They're slaves to addiction like that, to alcohol, pornography, video games. And so what happens, to your point, is what if companies actually say, we can't hire because the government won't let them. We can't hire illegal migrant labor. What do? We have to hire Americans. They now have an incentive to get those men off the sidelines, by the way, who are plagued by addiction, who are in no hurry to start a family, to contribute back to the society that brought them up. And so you get this systemic societal pain and suffering that we're seeing in places like Middletown, in places like Gary, Indiana, in places all across the Midwest and the Deep South. And so if you care about America, you hire American and you don't exploit. These people are being exploited who are coming over here. They're being told that you get this American dream. And what they get is they get a hotel room. They got 7 people living in there and the kids are working on DoorDash. And that's not cool. That's not fair. And it's not right. They were better off, to tell you the truth, they were better off staying in Colombia, in Honduras, in El Salvador, in Nigeria, in the Congo, where they weren't being used and they weren't being exploited. Let's not forget, Jacob, that 1 out of 3 women who make that journey up to the southern border, 1 out of 3 are sexually assaulted. Most of these people are not fleeing violence and persecution and war. Most of them are of the belief that they can come here, they can make a little bit more money, they can have access to our government programs. And by the way, what do? They send that money home. That's why you're seeing record immigration, not of families necessarily, but of single men, adult men who are coming here and sending money back home to mom or to sister, maybe to that girlfriend to support the household. And so this is not about people coming here much like Cuban Americans did 20, 30 years ago, because they represented this idea of freedom. They wanted to flee the depraved Castro regime. No, these people are coming here for economic opportunities. It's the greatest economic arbitrage in the world, and it exploits the people whose jobs are being replaced, American citizens, and it exploits those who are being paid $7, $6 an hour and are working the night shift as kids.
To be fair, to go back a little bit to the original question that I asked you, the reason why I say that is because I also don't want to generalize, because I think it is fair to say, and it's very enlightening, and it's very, wow, there's still hope for America when you see these guys like Bill Ackman, you see Elon Musk, people, the conservative billionaires, the conservative people that are really powerful. They know the people. Elon Musk is quite literally the richest person in the world, till we know, right? For him to come out and do what he's done, for Bill Ackman, another person that I look up to, because I used to watch all his videos, all his lectures. And it's crazy because I watched an interview, I may be mistaken, but I think I watched an interview like 7, 8 years ago when he was asked about politics. He said, no, I really don't want to get into it. And I think that comes a little bit from Warren Buffett, because Warren Buffett, his whole career, he was like, I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to get it. And then Trump came and he's like, oh, okay, I'm going to say this about him. But I say that because that side is also waking up, the side of, I don't agree with these people. Mark Cuban, I think he's a little bit on the crazy side. I'm not going to agree with him. That is also being seen. But you come from that world. You come from that world because you have your own capital management group, and your ex-boss, David Einhorn, just so if you guys don't know who he is, his net worth online is north of $1.5 billion. Like, this is somebody that runs a big company. So you've been in rooms with those level of people.
Sure.
Was there anything that you saw behind the doors in the backdoor conversations, being with these people that you're like, now I know why they don't like Trump. Now I know why they're on this side, because this is who they really are.
It's a good comparison, actually, to talk about someone like Bill Ackman, whose evolution has been, I mean,
Inspiring.
it's inspiring. I mean, it's inspiring. And, you know, Bill Ackman in an interview today said that he has never been more inspired and hopeful for America than he is right now after President Trump's victory. It was actually Bill Ackman who first introduced me to Vivek 2 years ago when he had just started out his political run for president, as you know. And there's a lot to unpack there. But to your question, being behind the scenes, being on, you know, a private jet to Vegas with Einhorn and Nate Silver and big traders in the industry, almost everybody on that plane, except me, didn't just not vote for Trump, but detested Donald Trump to its core, especially his supporters. And that's the thing where we have to draw the line, right? Is that, look, you can disagree with Donald Trump's policies, but when you're Joe Biden and you go out and call his supporters garbage, that's where things go too far. And what is this animosity toward Trump supporters and Donald Trump himself? It's the fact that he is willing to say the things in public that no one else is even willing to say in private. And he's willing to do it at enormous political cost to him. Think about the political prosecutions that Donald Trump has had to endure over the past 2 years. They can't imagine themselves having the courage to be able to speak up that way. And I'll tell you, you know, I don't think that David Einhorn is big on the pro-woke bandwagon. In my conversations with him, having worked for him for 2 years as an external advisor and then nearly 3 years as the head of macro, he would say allegedly, but as the head of macro at Greenlight.
I heard about that. I know this isn't a financial channel, but that is very interesting. I saw your interview. I forgot the podcast, but where you kind of went in on the story. Interesting to follow.
But, you know, David Einhorn, I think he's a Democrat who is somewhat practical, but like many Democrats just could never get over the idea that Donald Trump was bad. And that's sad, because I think if you actually were to engage with that person and just ask them, okay, why don't you like Trump? And the typical thing is, I don't like his personality. I don't like his character. Okay, well, aside from that, which of his actual policies did you disagree with? That's what matters. And when you ask people, they struggle. They turn to some hoax like the Two Sides hoax from Charlottesville. We just saw this 2 weeks ago with the Liz Cheney firing squad hoax. Clearly comments that were taken out of context and manipulated. But I'll tell you, last week's landslide win, 5 million vote more than Kamala Harris in the popular vote. That tells you everything you need to know. America has woken up.
I think the pendulum is swinging back. We had 4 years of what you just said.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, I'm peeing sitting down. I think I'm a girl. Hey, you know, why are they tampons in the bathroom? Are you guys genderifying, gender sexist, racist? Are you guys this? But the pendulum is swinging where they're like, yeah, okay, all this is crazy. But at what point did being a Democrat go from, and maybe they were just better at hiding it. I don't know. Maybe they were just better at hiding it. But remember, I'm still young. I'm 19 years old. But what I'm seeing right now is that the people that are Democrats are almost more radical. It's like they have to stick with this because it's like, no, I have to stick with blowjobs being taught in school. Well, I have to stick with the woke agenda because it's part of my, like, it's becoming more and more radicalized that it's like, at what point did it get to this? Or was it just, I hate Trump so much, but I have to stick with my party. I agree with his policies, but I can't like him because I have to stick. When did being a Democrat change to becoming radical?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the $1 million question. I mean, if you go back and listen to speeches from even Hillary Clinton in 2008, she said that if you're in this country illegally, we're going to deport you and we're not going to apologize for it. Think about Bill Clinton's term, right? He's indistinguishable now from your common MAGA Republican, what he stood for in the 1990s, right? The work requirement for welfare, that if you cannot just take off of work, not look for work, and still seek free government benefits, to his hardline stance on immigration. Something broke in the system. They let the most radical, extreme wing of the party control the entire narrative. And part of that happened after Trump won in 2016. But it's like that Ernest Hemingway quote. How did you go bankrupt? Gradually and then suddenly. Gradually and then suddenly. It happens with this pernicious force. It's insidious. It happens gradually. And then that moral bankruptcy that has hijacked the Democratic Party probably happened in 2019, 2020. We saw it in academia. And then what was taught in gender and sexuality majors at Harvard was now seeping into, no joke, fifth grade classrooms.
It was a seed that was being planted.
It was a seed that was being planted. And what 2020 did, despite all the setbacks of that year, what it did for parents of Republicans and Democrats was now they could see what was being taught in the school. Because now your daughter was seated across at the couch on her iPad. And wait, what about there being infinite genders? Wait, did she just say that white kids have to apologize because of maybe their great had a slave and black kids aren't good enough and are never going to succeed? And so the silver lining to the mushroom cloud that was 2020, and you and I know it well, remember it well, is that the jig was up, right? We pulled back the curtain. We saw what was being taught. And that's why you saw the rise of Moms for Liberty. This movement of moms and dads, even former Democrats, many of conservatives, but saying, I'm going to my school board meeting. Enough's enough. What are you teaching my child? And you know, there's an interesting conversation I had with a friend a couple weeks ago after a retreat for the Heritage Foundation. And she made a really interesting point. How do you define indoctrination versus education? Right? Because I don't think that you shouldn't talk about critical race theory in school. I think we should talk about everything in school, right? If we're going to talk about Ibram X. Kendi, that's fine, but we have to talk about Condoleezza Rice and Thomas Sowell. If you're going to introduce this idea that Nicole Hannah-Jones has in 1619 Project, that America was founded on this original sin of slavery, let's also introduce the other side, happen to believe is the true side of history about America's founding. You have to have both. What separates indoctrination from education is the lack of an opposing argument. If you present to students, Jacob, that there are infinite genders, that one scientist says there's infinite genders, well, if you don't present the other side that there's 0 genders, 2 sexes, and infinite personalities, which is the truth, then guess what? That's indoctrination. If you have someone go up there and say, with Incubate Debate, I make it pretty clear to my students that I'm an unapologetic conservative, and I ask them to challenge me. What would make it indoctrination if I only represented my conservative beliefs and never taught the other side?
So you're saying the problem came when this side said, this is what we're going to push, and anything against that, let's silence that. No, you're wrong. No, you're canceled.
It's hate speech, right?
Interesting.
That's the problem. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we got to this issue was, from the beginning of the country, universities represented a place where any idea could be debated, right? Affirmative action, good or bad? Let's have a debate on that. Transgenderism, is it real or is it sort of a social phenomenon? Immigration, the border, good, bad, ugly. Now it's only one set of arguments, and anything outside of that very narrow, allowed set of arguments is extremism, is hate speech, will be censored, and you will be punished. And so to answer your question, what went wrong in education in America, what went wrong with our culture, wasn't necessarily just the rise of progressive beliefs, which are, so many of them are just absolutely insane. The idea of furries, the idea of tampons in the boys' restroom. By the way, that idea that we just talked about that you mentioned about sitting to pee, that's not an exaggeration. The DSM-5, which is the manual that's used by the American Psychiatric Association to diagnose mental illnesses like gender dysphoria, aka transgenderism, one of the hallmark symptoms of a transgender girl, which is to say a boy who is a girl, no kidding, is that if they sit to pee, that may be a sign. Think about it.
Yo, I might be transgender because sometimes I sit to pee.
I love to sit to pee, and I don't mean to be crude about it, but it's actually a time for me to take the phone out, read some stuff, and think about telling a kid who's confused by the world, who's confused by the influences, who's got pornography pushed on them through social media algorithms, that wait, I sit to pee and I'm not into my sexual equipment down there. I don't know what 8-year-old is looking down there saying, "Yep, I'm good. I'm really happy with that." lying to girls saying that puberty is something that you can avoid by becoming a boy, that puberty is somehow an illness that you're infected with. I mean, that's where we are. And so, by the way, we've always had crazy ideas, right? We've always, back from the Garden of Eden, we've always had crazy ideas.
I think it's just being magnified now.
It's being magnified. Why? Because the other side doesn't have an opportunity to weigh in because of the censorship industrial complex. Remember, Adam and Eve made a choice. God gave them instructions. The serpent gave them instructions. They chose the wrong. People have to be able to make wrong decisions and then pay the price for them. But if you don't hear the other side, if you don't know the decision you're about to make, like a double mastectomy, like sterilizing yourself via a hysterectomy as a young girl saying I can never get pregnant because I don't like the color pink and I don't like wearing dresses and therefore that makes me a boy. If you don't get to hear the other side of that argument, then guess what? That's where this type of one-sided progressive ideology becomes so dangerous.
This takes me back. It just popped up to my head. I forgot what the exact story was, but in the Bible, Jeremiah chapter 29, right there where I don't know if you know the verse that says, For I, the Lord, know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you. I don't know if you know that verse.
Yeah.
But there's a verse there in the Bible that says that. And right before that, or after that, maybe misquoted, but it says, but you will have to stay in suffering for the next 70 years. But I, the Lord, know the plans that I have for you, the plans to prosper you and not harm you. But for those 70 years, you're going to suffer. But I'm going to get you out of this. I promise I'm going to get you out of this. It's kind of what I see now.
Yeah.
That the pendulum, like going back to what I said, is now swinging. And I think how do you say optimism people?
Optimistic people. Oh, yeah.
I'm
an optimist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the people that are optimists, those are the people that control the future. Those are the people that have, belief in the future looking bright. Those are the people that have belief in, you know what, the American dream is still alive. Yeah, you know what? All this craziness, but at the next 10 years, I think America's going to be better than it was the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. But how long now that Trump has gotten into presidency is it going to take for him to now, for a change to start happening with what we've had the last 4 years?
It's going to happen a lot quicker than people think. Because so much of what's happened over the past 4 years is that we've lost a sense of self-identity. We're no longer optimists. We're no longer believers in what America represented in 1776. I was in Chipotle the other day, which, by the way, the bowls are getting a lot heavier.
Oh my!
Because they know that Trump's not playing any games, right? You see Hamas wants to end the war, and Russia is saying we want peace, and China is saying we want a peaceful coexistence. So to your question, Donald Trump hasn't even been the victor of the election for 10 days, and all of our global adversaries are saying, we respect, and now it's time to get back to business because they know what he represents. And so I think the biggest thing here is a lot of it's psychology, globally, but also within the country. I think a lot of people are just more optimistic. We're seeing it with business confidence, just talking to small business owners over the last week about what they're seeing and what they're feeling. We got to secure the border on day one. We got to send a message that the type of conduct we've seen is not acceptable. And we have to rebuild the Trump economy. And you actually do that through optimism. You have a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think that the economy's bad, guess what? It's going to alter your spending decisions. It's going to alter your decision to invest or hire new employees if you're a business owner. When you see Trump go in there, you say, wow, that Trump economy was the best of my lifetime. You're already making those decisions now. Hey, Trump's back. Maybe I should hire those dozen employees I was thinking about. And then you bring people off the sidelines and give them not just the money. Yeah, money's great, but work, showing up to a job, taking a shower in the morning, putting on a dress shirt, putting on some overalls, that gives you a sense of dignity and purpose that every American deserves to have.
I mean, how quick do you think that's going to... Because I'm trying to understand it, because there's also the other side of the argument, which I've heard from some of my family members, is like, well, it's the same animal in a different skin. They're both the same. They're both just pushing their personal agendas. They're both doing this. look at what Trump said that he was going to build a wall, and at the end of the 4 years when he was, and that Mexico was going to pay for it, but at the end of the 4 years, that wasn't accounted for, and so many different other things. Like that other side, playing devil's advocate, will say, well, how much power does he really have?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how much power does he really have when he gets into office to say, yeah, this is over, this is over, this is over, and change to happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think for some people who are disaffected, disillusioned by politics, they've just kind of given up on it. They say Republicans and Democrats are the same. And by the way, that's largely been true, right? The same trade policies of Joe Biden and Barack Obama got us in this mess. Those are the same policies of George Bush and his father. And so there's been this consensus in Washington for a long time that, free trade is good, tariffs are bad, globalism is good, the UN is great, and so on. And, endless foreign wars are necessary to prop up defense contractors in America. Don't just judge Trump by Trump himself. We can just put that to the side. Look at who he's surrounded himself with. Elon Musk, the guy who's got rockets that are landing themselves and being caught by chopsticks. RFK, the leader of this Make America Healthy Again movement, which, by the way, so much of the illness in our country can't be solved with free healthcare. It has to be solved with the food that we put into our bodies, avoiding certain things and making sure we have the right things every single day. To my friend Vivek Ramaswamy, right? It's about the team that you assemble. And the MAGA Avengers, Jacob.
Oh, I was going to say
the MAGA Avengers. And by the way, not to be confused with the anti-Trump woke Avengers who came out. I don't know if you saw that, the Zoom call that they had in the lead up to the election. The entire Avengers endorsed Kamala Harris. Every single one of them fell into line, from Scarlett Johansson to Robert Downey Jr. And it makes you wonder, well, if they're all on the same page about something, did any of them have any critical disagreement about it and maybe get threatened? This is about a team of superheroes. Trump at the helm, but RFK, Vivek, Elon among the most impressive. That's how we make America great again. It's not just one man. We're guided by one man, but we have a team of people who are going to make this happen and get us over the line.
So I want to play devil's advocate.
Please.
A bit. So what do you say to that person that says, well, those are MAGA people, and now the House is Republican, so doesn't that mean that Trump can just say whatever he wants and it'll get approved or get passed? Like, doesn't he have exactly what the left had, which is they could say whatever, do whatever?
Yeah.
And isn't that now what just happened?
That's a good point. And it's not as straightforward as, well, Trump won and the House is Republican and the Senate's Republican, because the Senate is not full of many pro-Trump Republicans. We just saw that with how the Senate leadership race went, where Rick Scott was obviously the MAGA candidate, and he lost the first ballot. And it's sad because he would have been an incredible majority leader in the Senate. So just because folks are Republican, I mean, Liz Cheney's a Republican, right? Adam Kinzinger's a Republican. These are the biggest Trump haters in the world. So that's the first thing, is not all Republicans are going to fall in line with this particular agenda, for good, bad, whatever it may be. The second is, there's always been room for debate with Trump. He's always been a person where if you substantively engage with his ideas, he's willing to change his mind. And he has a pretty good track record of having done that. And the last one is that we have to remember that a lot of the arguments about the tyranny and the fascism, Trump had the White House for 2 straight years with the Senate and with the House. And we didn't get anywhere near any of that. Right? And so there's the theories, there's the hyperbole, there's the exaggeration of the left. And then there's the, oh, wait, the exact same thing that you said is going to happen. Well, we had 2 years of that and none of it happened. So what makes this time different? To your point about personal agenda, yes, I do believe that Donald Trump is pursuing a personal agenda. And that agenda is to make America great again. He is in legacy mode. He doesn't need to do this. He didn't need to be sued, to be threatened, to be convicted, to be indicted as many times as he has been. He's doing this because he loves the country. And so when you're at that point, you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You have shelter, you have water, you have safety. The last thing on that pyramid, the highest point, Jacob, is self-actualization. What will my legacy be 100 years from now? And Donald Trump cares about building America to that point.
And I also don't think it's bad to have a personal agenda that is rooted in inherent good.
Yeah.
Meaning, if his personal agenda is, I want to see America great again, I want to see America better than it was the last 4 years, and him say, hey, I had a large part of that. Who cares who takes the credit? What does America look like? Okay, he could take the
That's
credit.
right.
If America is better, if the economy is better, if I'm right now at 19, at 25, I could, or 23, I feel more confident. I feel, hey, you know what? Maybe I could start thinking about affording a home, because right now, things are a little bit crazy. Maybe I could start looking to that. Okay, well, I think having a personal agenda, having some may call it, lack of better words, ego, is something that, if it's for an inherent good,
Yeah.
it's not bad.
Yeah.
You don't want someone that's 100% selfless and like, well, we have to care about everybody. We have to donate money to Israel and, these people, while the hurricane relief from FEMA, we're giving $750 because we care about the world. Like, you don't want 100% selfish person, which is something that I heard Patrick David said, where you want that 70-30. 70% selfless, meaning they care about other people, they care about others better than themselves, and 30%, okay, what's my legacy? What's the legacy that I want to leave behind?
That's exactly right. And think about the extremes, to your point, Jacob. Do you want someone who cares about how they'll be remembered, or someone who doesn't care at all? The person who cares about how they'll be remembered, they're going to work so much harder to see the success that we can get under Trump. And I'll tell you something, success is unifying. I don't think that we're going to bring the country together through lectures and TED Talks. I think when we lift all boats, we rebuild the Trump economy, and we bring people off the sidelines, we bring families together again, that's how you unify the country. And that's what Trump brings. I don't think he's going to go around and give these Dr. Phil style, Oprah style talks and bring us together. I think you actually just build a great country and people say, the economy's doing good. I'm feeling good about things. We're ending this divisive culture, whether it's CRT in the schools, this one-sidedness we talk about in education. That's how you actually bring the country together.
Speaking about personal legacy, you just made a big decision right now.
Yeah.
This is going to get published, and today's Thursday, 4 days from now on Tuesday. You made a big decision to now become the senator of Florida, now that Marco Rubio has, I forgot, I'm learning this. What's crazy? I think everybody gets into politics not on purpose. Nobody is a kid and says, hey, I want to get into politics. So I always take the approach of, hey, look, I'm just learning. I'm asking questions because I want to learn. But that being said, I don't remember the exact position that he was appointed for.
Yeah.
What was it again?
Secretary of State. Which means you're in charge of the foreign policy, whether it's Israel, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, okay. You are the face of the foreign policy of the government.
Okay. So now that he has left being the Florida senator, now there's a spot open, and you have officially declared that you are running for that spot, which you just taught me you have to be appointed for.
Correct, by the governor.
So why do you think you should be appointed?
I should be appointed because I'm a lifelong Floridian. I've been to every county in this state, all 67. I know what makes this state special. I also know what makes this particular moment in time special. Donald Trump just won a landslide victory last week, and he needs a fighter in Washington who's going to help him deliver on the MAGA mandate. What is the MAGA mandate? Secure the border, rebuild the Trump economy, the best of our lifetime, and finally, once and for all, bring the country together through the economic successes, through all the other successes we can talk about. And so what I've said is that I'm going to help Trump, I'm going to help Florida, but I'm going to do it in a way that is rooted in first principles. The first principle is I'm not taking a salary. I'm not doing this because I want any money or anything like that. I'm going to donate that salary here to charities in the state. Number two is before every key vote, if we're going to vote on lifting an embargo for Cuba, if we're going to vote on government aid to Venezuela or sanctions to Venezuela, I'm going to come down to the Cuban community here. I'm going to come down to the Venezuelan community. I'm going to go to the Brazilian community in Orlando. And I'm going to meet with them. What do you think about this bill, this policy? Which way should I go? I'm not going to pledge that I'm going to go the way they want me to, but I want to hear them out because I think that open debate is really important in making decisions. The more viewpoints and opinions you can have, the better decision you're going to make. And so that's my commitment. Meet in person with Florida voters to understand where they are on an issue. And the last one is, I'm not using this. I don't see myself as a career politician. I'm going to sit in this seat if Governor DeSantis appoints me for just 2 years. The Rubio term will end in January 2027, DeSantis can appoint in the next couple of weeks. I'll take that seat. I'll hold it for 2 years, and I promise that I will not seek re-election. Because I think you can get a lot done in 2 years. I think when you give yourself deadlines in life, that's good. It forces you to do your best work. I think that the next 2 years are the most important in the country. I think that if you can't fix this problem in the next 2 years, and I know that we can, but if you couldn't, then that would be a really, really tough pill to swallow. Let me give you an example. If you sprained your ankle and you were thinking about getting a physical therapist and you were interviewing a physical therapist and he told you, Jacob, I want to be your physical therapist for life. Like, what do you mean for life? I sprained my ankle. I want to be walking again in 3 weeks. What do you mean for life? Your plumber comes to you and says, you clogged your toilet. I want to be your plumber for life. No. I just want you to fix the toilet and then be gone, right? Why is it that in politics we want our people to be our senators, our congressmen for life? I'm going to go in there. I'm going to fight with President Trump. We're going to secure the border. We're going to rebuild the economy. We're going to project strength on the world stage. And then honestly, I say this with humility, mic drop, I'm going to go out. I'm going to go back to Azoria and building an investment business.
Would that go on a pause while you're...
So that's part of the decision that I've been having to make and discuss with our investors and our team. My business partner, Asaf, he is more than equipped to steer the ship. We've been spending the last year preparing for this moment. So everything's in place. And so he is the right person to lead Azoria if Governor DeSantis and really the people of Florida, whom the governor serves at the pleasure of, give me this opportunity to represent them and to fight with President Trump. And so it's not going to be easy, but now it's my job with today's announcement to go make the case to the public, to go meet with people from Pensacola to St. Pete, from Mariana to Miami, and say, what do you need in a senator? How can I be that person? Recognize that I have strengths and weaknesses. And if there are weaknesses that I don't think I can overcome in time, that it makes sense for me maybe not to seek that role out. But I'm going to be pretty honest with my fellow Floridians, and I'm going to do right by them no matter what. And if I'm not appointed, I'm going to commit myself to fully supporting whoever is, not just in a superficial symbolic sense with a tweet and an Instagram post, but to work with them to make myself available to them and their team to support Florida and to support President Trump in Washington.
I like that. Have you seen, speaking about Pensacola, I went last summer. It's really nice. Have you ever been to Rosemary Beach?
I have. It's beautiful.
Oh my gosh. It's quite literally Spain in Florida.
You would not, if I woke you up there and said, hey, where are we?
I would say, because I've been to, I would say, because Spain doesn't have that color, because it's not like a Spanish color. It's more like white and...
Yeah, it's like the sand.
I would say like a Santorini, if it wasn't blue and if it wasn't as nice and it wasn't elevated, it would be like a Santorini.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. The reason why I bring it's quite literally beautiful. Like I was very surprised when I got there. And it was just, we were going there accidentally. It was our last day. We went for a week in Pensacola, and then we drove by. I was like, why didn't we stay here? This place is like amazing. The food is good. The people are nice. Like the scenery is like incredible. But just side note, because it's really beautiful.
Did you drive up there to Pensacola?
No, we took a flight. That's too much.
So and it's so interesting you bring that up, because the distance between Pensacola and Key West, right, the furthest distance of the state of Florida, it takes more time to drive from Pensacola to Key West than it does from Pensacola to Chicago. That's how big of a state we have. And people think of Florida as Miami and Orlando and Tampa, but guess what? We've got Mariana. Yeah. We've got Madison. We've got Pensacola. We've got Ponce de Leon. We've got Wakulla. We've got Alachua. We've got so many great parts of this state that, tell you the truth, are not being given enough time, attention, and energy. And so I pledge to be a U.S. Senator for every county in the state. And when there's a bill that comes, whether it's on agriculture, I'm going to be down in Clewiston and Moorhaven talking to both the workers and the farmers and saying, how should I think about this? Because I'm not a farmer. I didn't pick sugarcane. I didn't grow sugarcane. But I have an obligation. A lot of senators will bring in the industry experts and the lobbyists and want to hear their PowerPoint presentations. No, I want to go to Clewiston. I want to go to Moorhaven. I want to go to Immokalee. I want to talk to the workers. I want to talk to the farmers and say, hey, the Congress, Senate wants to do this, and President Trump thinks this. Where are you on this particular issue? Because we want to make sure that President Trump's agenda and vision is the most successful it can be.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, because when does that decision get made?
Theoretically, it could happen tomorrow.
Theoretically.
Theoretically.
Now,
realistically, it would probably happen between now and Christmas.
Okay. Because I say that, I think you're going to have an interesting, God willingly, we'll see what happens in the next 2 months. Like you said, if it could be theoretically tomorrow, then it could be in a week, it could be in 2 weeks. But nonetheless, I think you're going to have a very busy, exciting, and I would say learning curve, because you've never done this before, right?
No.
So I think there's a lot to be learned from this.
There is. And I actually think that that is a benefit, not a drawback, that I've never done this before. Because think about the world that I come from. I come from the world of business, of markets, of investing, of starting Incubate Debate. A big believer that when you have as many voices at the table, you make better decisions. And so I'm not coming into this as some career politician saying, well, I just want to meet with the lobbyists. I want to meet just with the special interest groups. No, I want to go meet with the people who are going to be directly affected by this, whether that's the Venezuelan community in Miami or the Brazilian community in Orlando. And you think about Bill Ackman. I think Bill Ackman would be an incredible senator, an incredible governor, precisely because he's never been in politics. He's been in the business world. And in the business world, when we make a mistake, we pay the price. We don't get to outsource that price, that cost to someone else. In politics, no one bears the blame of bad decisions. And so for me, it's not a political career. It's about national service. If I can go in there and shake things up and be appointed by Governor DeSantis and work alongside President Trump, that would be the honor of a lifetime. And, it's kind of like procrastination. You have this essay that's due in 3 months and you're like, you do it and you have 3 months to do it, Jacob. And guess when you start doing it? 2 days before it's due.
For sure.
Right? By telling and making the commitment that I'm going to be in that seat for 2 years and I will not seek re-election, that means I've got to get ready on day one. I've got to be ready to hit the ground running to make sure that everything is in place so we can fight for Floridians, whether they're in Pensacola, Rosemary Beach, Jackson County, Madison County, wherever it may be, and make sure that they are represented and we can get President Trump's agenda over the line.
Well, I wish you nothing but the best. I am excited to see the future. I would definitely love to do another interview and see where you are in the next couple of months, the next couple of years. I have the feeling that you are someone that 10 years from now, I really don't know where you're going to be. I think it's going to be at an astronomically high level just because of your communication skills, just because of the things that you focus on. Because I was listening to, and we didn't touch up on the subject. I would love to do it in a different interview, but it's extremely important. Not that it's not important to touch up about, but the fentanyl crisis that's going on right now. And I know it's something that you're heavily educated, involved, and the way that you articulate it is in a way that's, I don't think this guy has any incentive. I think he genuinely cares about what's happening. And I saw that being displayed there on that podcast with Vivek. But, I mean, like I said, from this first impression, from us communicating, from us having this conversation, I think you have a very bright future. You know it. But I'm myself excited to see what the next 5, 10, 2 months looks like. But the next 5 years, I definitely think you have a lot going for you.
Well, likewise, Jacob. And let's do this again.
100%. I appreciate it. Anything that you want to leave the viewers on?
I would say I love that quote by Ernest Hemingway, which is, there is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self, which is to say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're not superior. You have to be smarter than you were a week ago, a year ago, a month ago, this morning, whatever the case is. You don't judge yourself, Jacob, by, I'm so smart, I'm so superior, and then guess what? You get complacent, and the next thing you know, those skills start to dwindle. But it also goes the other way around. Don't judge yourself by your fellow man, but by your former self. If you are just starting a workout, just starting to lose weight, just starting to overcome that addiction, whatever it may be, don't compare yourself to the best of the best. Am I better than I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, this morning? That's how you push forward. You remind yourself that it's a constant game. And there was this great quote by Ray Dalio, the well-known macro investor, as you know, Jacob. And he says, if I don't look at myself a year ago and think I was a complete idiot then then I haven't learned anything since. Think about that.
What a powerful quote. And then I'm going to add on top of that, I'm going to add a little cherry on top.
Please.
Matthew McConaughey, that he said, the person I want to meet is myself 5 years from today.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, I want to meet the person 5 years. And you're always on that quest to see your future self. Always on that quest to get better. Always on that quest to not say, you know, I'm the smartest person in the room. Hey, but look at me. Hey, I'm running for senator. Hey, I built this. Hey, I worked for this guy. Hey, look at me. No.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see myself in 5 years. I can't wait to see myself. And I think adopting that mentality is what America needs. We need to stop making heroes out of people who said, yeah, you know, I want to be a boy today. I was a girl, but now I want to be a boy. We got to stop making those the heroes and start making people like Elon, a guy who was on the verge of going bankrupt and decided to not just go all in on one company and have the other one just stop. Go all in on both companies, have that pressure, run what he's doing, you know, protect people. A lot of people would argue, protect our freedom of speech by buying Twitter. I mean, those are the people that we should create heroes of society. And I think that falls exactly on what you just said.
That's right.
So I appreciate
That's right.
your time.
Thank you, Jacob.
If you guys did enjoy, I'm going to link everything in the description, his Twitter, everything you guys need to see, and I'll see you on the next one.